What we're going to be looking at, if you're a note taker and feel like taking notes on this, you're welcome to. This is part of our negative numbers chapter. So this is chapter 8, and this would be lesson 5. And this is a lesson on the coordinate plane, aka graphing. Graphing, though, where we look at negative numbers in the coordinate plane. So, the goals for this short mini lesson are to go over a few key terms, and I'm going to look at them with you right now. The first thing is something that we've talked about plenty of times before, but just to make sure you know what it is, the first word or term is ordered pair. An ordered pair is the way that you represent numbers on a graph. So we represent numbers on a graph with an ordered pair, and the first number is x, second number is y. So for example, you might have the point 3 comma 5. That's an ordered pair. The first number, 3, represents how I move along the x-axis, and the second number represents how I move along the y-axis, and that is called an ordered pair. It's kind of like GPS coordinates when you're working on a coordinate plane. The second thing that I want to talk about is the coordinate plane itself. So a coordinate plane is the place, the location where we plot points. We plot ordered pairs, and it's composed of two lines, formerly known as the x-axis and the y-axis. So let's make sure we've got those two squared away. The x-axis is the one that runs horizontally across the screen from left to right, and the y-axis is the one that runs vertically up and down across the screen. And another key point, or a key part of the coordinate plane, is this spot right here. In the very, very center, this is known as the origin. The origin, aka 0, 0. This is an important spot on the coordinate plane because every time that you go to plot a point, you need to start at the origin and work from there. And we'll look at that in a few moments. The last thing is quadrants. I'll write that word down. So you see the prefix quad in there, quad, aka four of something. So the quadrants, there are 4 of them on a graph, on a coordinate plane. We represent them using Roman numerals, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the quadrant that you are super familiar with is quadrant 1. That is where we have graphed most of our points, if not all of them, up to this part of your math careers. You've focused in quadrant 1. You actually probably haven't even seen the other 3 quadrants too much because most of the time the graphs you've seen have an x and a y-axis that look like this, and the other 3 quadrants aren't even represented. But if you were to zoom out from quadrant 1, you have these other locations on the coordinate plane. Quadrant 1 is where everything is positive. So the point that I wrote before, 3 comma 5, that would be somewhere in quadrant 1. The quadrants are labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they move counterclockwise from quadrant 1. So this is 1. Quadrant 2 is right here, this area. Quadrant 3 is the lower left quadrant, and quadrant 4 is the lower right quadrant. Quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's your 4 sections of the coordinate plane. And the last thing I'd like to do is to practice plotting a few points. So I'm going to use this coordinate plane that I just invented, but I'm going to erase all of the stuff that's around it just so it's a little less hectic looking on the screen. So take out ordered pair, take out our quadrant numbers, origin. All right, got a nice clean slate. We're going to graph 4 different points. So the first point we'll call point A, and that's going to be located at 3, 2. The next point we plot is going to be point B, and we're going to put that at -3, 2. The third point we're going to plot is going to be at 3, -2. And the final point that we'll plot is going to be at -3, -2. So I'm using the same exact digits, 3 and 2, but different variations of those digits, where one is negative, one is positive, both are positive, or both are negative. And let's see how that impacts where these points are located on the coordinate plane. So, as I said before, ordered pairs work somewhat like GPS directions. They tell you where to plot points. The first point, point A, is we're going to go to 3, 2. You always start at the origin when you're counting off your spots. So I'm going to put my pencil at the origin, and the first number is the x coordinate, and that tells me how to move along the x-axis. And since it's telling me to move to +3, treat this as a number line. If the middle is 0, positive numbers are to the right, negative numbers are to the left. And I'm going to move in the direction of +3. So 1, 2, 3 units to the right. And the second number in point A tells me to move to +2 along the y-axis. Well, I'd like you to think positive numbers move up, negative numbers move down. So I moved 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, and 2 points up, 1, 2. So the approximate location, I don't have numbers on this particular coordinate plane, so I'm kind of guessing, but it's about 3, 2, so about right here, point A. 3 spaces to the right, 2 spaces up. Now, what would happen if the first digit was negative? Well, I go back to the origin to start, and the first number always tells me how to move along the x-axis, so I'm either moving left or right. And since it's -3, I'm going to move 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 3 to the left. And then the second number tells me to move 2 up. 1, 2. So point B has some similarities to point A in that I moved up 2 units, but instead of moving to the right, I moved to the left. All right, point C. Back to the middle to start. I always start at the origin. This tells me to move 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3. And the second number in point C tells me to move 2 units down towards negatives. So down 2, 1, 2. So there's point C. And my final point on this coordinate plane is point D, where both digits are negative. So start at the origin, and since the first number is negative, I move 3 to the left, 1, 2, 3. And since the second digit is negative, I'm going to move down 2, 1, 2. All right. And there are the 4 points that I needed to plot. That is the basics of how to plot in all 4 quadrants of the coordinate plane. From here, I have some practice that I'd like you to work on between the rest of the class period and, if needed, this afternoon / this evening. Just to do a quick rundown with you, the first part of the practice, you'll see looks like this. There are 2 questions where you're essentially recapping the notes that I just went over in this video lesson. So part 1 says, label the x, y, origin, 4 quadrants on the coordinate plane. So right on this coordinate plane, you'll be doing those items. And then after doing that section, I'd like you to tell me what signs each coordinate must have to be in the 4 quadrants. So I'm going to do one of these for you. In quadrant 1, which is up here, so I'm going to write this down. Quadrant 1, My x value, which is the first number in the ordered pair, is going to be positive, which I'm going to represent with a plus. And the second value is also positive, which I'll represent with a plus. The rest of the quadrants I'm going to leave to you. In quadrant 2, what would the x and the y value be in terms of positive or negative? And that would be in this quadrant. And then you'll repeat that for 3 and for quadrant 4. After doing these two short recap questions, you'll move on to the full set of practice problems, and I'll leave that to you to look at. There are quite a few, but it does move quickly. Graphing's not a super lengthy process, so although it looks like there's a lot, it should move fairly quickly, I hope. And then I'll recap anything that you might have questions on Monday of next week, and then we're going to move, I'm excited to move into our positive and negative operations. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing when you have not only positive numbers, but negative numbers. It's going to be fun. Until then, have a fantastic Thursday. I will see you tomorrow afternoon. And if you have any troubles, questions, concerns, comments, anything, just send me an email. Until then, have a swell rest of your day. Bye-bye.